From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ayotunde Balogun.
Hello and welcome to the News at 10 on a rainy night in some parts of Lagos. Tonight, ADC members file suit challenging the interim leadership of former Senate President David Mark. Tension grips two neighboring communities in Adamawa State as police confirm 2 deaths after communal clash in Lamurde local government area of the state. Senate hits back at the House of Representatives, denies allegation of delaying concurrence on legislative bills from the lower house. On the foreign scene, an all-women group of Israeli legal and gender experts accuse Hamas of using sexual violence as part of a deliberate genocidal strategy during the October 7, 2023 attack on Israel.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's economic activities expands for the 6th consecutive month as official PMI reading climbs higher to 52.3 in June.
On sports news tonight, two-time defending champion Carlos Alcaraz produces a Wimbledon masterclass to end British hope, Cameron Norrie's run, and move into the semi-finals once again.
And from the nation's capital, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies organizes capacity building workshop for officials of the Malawi Parliamentary Service Commission.
We begin with a legal tussle as it affects the newly formed coalition, the African Democratic Congress. Now, 3 members of the ADC have filed a suit challenging the interim leadership of the party, led by former President of the Senate, David Mark, before a federal high court, Abuja. In the suit filed on July the 4th, the plaintiffs, Adeyemi Emmanuel, Ayodeji Tolu, and Haruna Ismaila, are asking the court to determine the legality of the interim leadership of the ADC. They hold that Mr. Rafumosu lacks the right to convene either a National Working Committee or National Executive Committee meeting or any other since his tenure as ADC National Chairman has expired. The plaintiffs also state that interim executives cannot and should not act in a leadership capacity, noting that they were appointed by an illegal meeting organized by a former national chairman. Among several reliefs sought, the plaintiffs are asking the court to declare the appointment of David Mark, Rauf Aregbesola, and Bolaji Abdullahi as unconstitutional, unlawful, null, and void. They also prayed the court for an order restraining the electoral umpire, INEC, from recognizing the 4th, 5th, and 6th defendants as the interim national chairman, National Secretary, and National Publicity Secretary of the first defendant, that's the ADC. Opposition politicians unveiled the party, the African Democratic Congress, on June the 2nd this year as a platform to rally votes against President Bola Tinubu of the APC in the 2027 elections. This led to the appointment of David Mark as the interim national chairman, Rauf Aregbesola, former Osun State governor, as secretary, and Bolaji Abdullahi, a former sports minister, as the party's spokesperson. Still at the courts, Justice Marian Aneni of the Federal Capital Territory High Court Abuja has fixed July the 17th for ruling on an application filed by the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, seeking to travel out of the country on health grounds. At the resumed hearing, his counsel and senior advocate of Nigeria, Joseph Daudu, told the court that he had filed an application seeking an order for the release of his client's international passport by the registrar to enable him to travel for medical attention. The FCC counsel had, however, filed a counter affidavit saying granting the request could delay further proceedings. In response to the prosecution team's counter affidavit, Mr. Daudu said the defendant's team had also filed a further affidavit of 20 paragraphs filed on July the 7th this year and deposed to by the applicant himself with 2 exhibits. Away from the courts now, let's head to Adamawa State, where violence reared its ugly head as the police have confirmed 2 deaths and several others injured following a communal clash in Lamorde local government area. The spokesman of the Adamawa State Police Command, Mr. Suleiman Guroje, confirmed the figure during a media briefing in Yola, the Adamawa State capital. He adds that investigations are ongoing to unravel the immediate cause of the clash.
Tension grips 2 neighboring communities in Lamorde local government area of Adamawa State following clashes over farmlands. The clash left the warring parties with casualties, with houses burnt and property destroyed. Governor Umaru Fintiri immediately summoned a security meeting with heads of security outfits in the state and traditional rulers at the council chambers of the government house. However, no statement was issued at the end of the meeting on the resolutions taken. Nevertheless, the police in the state provide an update on the clash.
What happened was, at the early hours of today, the command received reports about a conflict that came up in between 2 communities that is identified to be Shobo and Bachama in Lamurde local government. There and then the Commissioner of Police immediately mobilized operative of the command and deployed them to that area. What the command is interested about is to restore normalcy. There and then the Commissioner of Police equally directed investigations to be conducted. As I'm talking to you now, officers from the highest investigative body of the command, that is CID, we are equally deployed to go around and conduct investigations to come up with the genesis, the bottom part, the source of the conflict. We got report that 2 people so far lost their lives and so many round huts, houses were destroyed.
The police is yet to make any arrests as investigations continue into the cause of the clash.
I don't want to preempt investigations, and that explains the reason why investigators who are known to be expert in doing so are already there to conduct investigations. So I plead that we should allow them the opportunity to conduct that investigations and tell us the genesis of the problems and whatever things that must have causes it. We are going to make it known and equally draw a security ring across it to ensure that such things never happen again.
In the meantime, normalcy is gradually returning to the affected communities and more security operatives are deployed to the area, while those injured are receiving treatment at the Modibo Adama Teaching Hospital in Yola, the state capital.
To the National Assembly, where the Senate has refuted claims that it disregards and delays concurrence bills passed by the House of Representatives, insisting that its actions are always guided by public interest. During plenary, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, as well as the Senate leader, Okpeyemi Bamidele, clarified the Senate's position, underpinning that the Red Chamber has been diligent in attending to bills forwarded by the House. This follows slight tensions last week after the House of Representatives resolved to suspend further consideration of bills originating from the Senate, citing what it described as persistent delays in legislative concurrence from the Red Chamber. Our National Assembly correspondent, Gloria Mizoke, reports.
Lawmakers are back in session after a short break to hold zonal public hearings on the review of the Constitution. The leadership begins by addressing major allegations leveled by the House of Representatives, accusing the Senate of routinely disregarding legislations passed by the lower chamber as 2 concurrence bills were presented for consideration.
This Senate concurred to 6 bills from the House of Representatives. And yes, while we have the principle of chamber reciprocity, Mr. President, the principle of chamber reciprocity does not necessarily mean for us garbage in, garbage out. We will continue to consider concurrence bills sent from the House of Representatives the same way they also consider our own, and we will ensure that every bill is given attention in overriding public interest.
We work so hard here.
Only last week, there was slight apprehension between the both chambers as a Senate bill slated for second reading in the House of Representatives was stood down.
I, as a person, I have more than 10 bills. Some are there for more than 6 months. No attention. We don't know what is really happening.
This action followed complaints of reciprocity failure. The Senate president, however, firmly refutes the claims.
Please let our brothers in the House of Representatives know that we cannot joke with anything that comes from there. It takes two hands to clap, and we'll continue to work together.
Separately, in a decisive step towards digital transformation, the Senate consider and pass through second reading a bill to strengthen the nation's digital economy and legalizing artificial intelligence.
The bill's expected impact includes enhancing Nigeria's ease of doing business. It will also enhance governance by eliminating administrative inefficiencies and reducing corruption through transparent digital processes.
Those in favor that this bill be read second time, please say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Among several bills up for consideration, a bill to amend the Legislative Houses, Powers and Privileges Act 2025, seeking to streamline sanctions for erring lawmakers, scales first reading. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Still on the National Assembly, President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, is urging Nigerians not to be deceived by coalitions, describing as unrealistic a person belonging to two political parties at once, as only political parties contest elections and not individuals. He stated this during the open week of the House of Representatives. Senator Akpabio used the opportunity to announce plans by the Senate to promptly attend to complaints from the House concerning some bills. Now, the Speaker, in the meantime, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, says with the ongoing constitutional amendment, 10% of seats in the Senate and the House will be reserved for women, while 5% of the seats in both chambers are to be reserved for persons with disabilities. Our National Assembly correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
The three-day open week of the House of Representatives commences in the Green Chamber, which is filled with members of the House and invited guests. The National Assembly Open Week seeks to give Nigerians access to the National Assembly to understand how Parliament works. Civil society organizations are represented by the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center.
The partnership that we share together cannot flourish under a cloud of suspicion. Over the past decade, several bills have surfaced in the House of Representatives that seek to license, and it comes under different titles, seek to license, register, or directly regulate NGOs in ways that are shrinking civic space.
I would like also to stress the importance of electoral reforms to consolidate the resilience of the electoral system and the trust of stakeholders and citizens in it.
Goodwill messages are received from past speakers of the House of Representatives.
You have 2 years to go. The first 2 years, I don't want to start going into that, but we all know that the remaining 2 years there's a fire on the mountain.
How this House will define the political terrain depends largely on you. There's freedom of speech, but speech only when it is free speech that is protected in a democracy. Hate speech is not.
The collapse of the local government system has created a situation where citizens now expect members of the legislature, particularly those in the National Assembly, to fill the gap in providing social services that would otherwise have been the responsibility of local government administrations.
The Senate President is a special guest of honor, and he seizes the opportunity to address concerns of the House around the poor attention to House bills by the Senate.
Let me start by reporting to you, Mr. Speaker, that last week we passed 6 of your bills. And today, even if it takes us till 6 p.m., we are going to finish with 4. And then tomorrow we will continue. We want to surprise you. Just to let you know that we do not joke with you, and the chamber reciprocity must always be upheld.
He goes further to speak on the recent spate of political defections and opposition coalitions.
There's no need to say I'm a member of ADC, but I still remain a member of Labour Party. You can't belong to two political parties. It's only one party that will contest election. So the public must know that only political parties contest election, not necessarily the individual. So anybody that tries to deceive you that he or she still belongs to ADA, the political party called ADA, but I'm just attending ADC. You are registering in ADC, but my party is still ADA. Then you must be talking to a child.
The Speaker of the House delivers the keynote address, drawing attention to the efforts of Parliament to ensure inclusivity.
The 10th House will pursue vigorous collaboration with the State House of Assemblies and all stakeholders to ensure that the bill on the reserved seat is passed and become part of our Constitution before the end of this administration. 10% of seats in both the Senate and the House of Representatives will be set aside for women. 5% of seats will be reserved for persons with disabilities, with candidates nominated by accredited disability advocacy organizations.
The open week allows the House to present its midterm scorecard, showing its progress, acknowledging shortcomings, and its path for the remaining 2 years. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, Nigeria and Brazil signed Memorandum of Understanding to promote the transfer of production technologies for medical consumables. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. ADC members file suit challenging the interim leadership of former President of the Senate, David Mark. Tension grips 2 neighboring communities in Adamawa State as police confirm 2 deaths after communal clash in Lamorde local government area of the state. Senate hit back at the House of Representatives, denies allegation of delaying concurrence on legislative bills from the lower house. And on the foreign scene, an all-women group of Israeli legal and gender experts accuse Hamas of using sexual violence as part of a deliberate genocidal strategy during the October the 7th, 2023 attack on Israel. Here's some interesting news for international travelers in the country, and in a bid to improve access to passport services and reduce processing delays, the Federal Ministry of Interior has commissioned a new passport front office. The Minister of Interior, Olubomi Tunjojo, says the facility will decongest existing centers and speed up passport issuance for Nigerians. Present at the commissioning were the Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Yutsev, and the Controller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service, Mrs. Kemi Nanda.
We got to the Ministry of Interior in 2023 and were surprised that the Ministry of Interior, which oversights Nigerian Immigration Service, there was no passport office in the Ministry of Interior. It's not done anywhere in the world. When you go, the people here in the Ministry of the senior civil servants, in water resources, trade and rest, even when they and their families, they want passports, they have to go all the way to Soka. And I mean, it's not ideal. Or you have to go and book a foreign affairs, or NNPC or wherever. And the ministry that is statutorily responsible for that responsibility had no facility like that. And of course, a lot of our public servants, they have to cancel a day's work to go and queue, to go to, we just thought that it's part of the privilege of being a public servant, a senior public servant. For you, your family, and at least you can just walk in here, do your passport, get your passport, and make life easy.
Bilateral relations between Nigeria and Brazil continue to wax stronger as the coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, has announced the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the Brazilian Ministry of Health that will see Nigeria getting some commodities such as vaccines. According to the minister, this took place on the sidelines of the ongoing 17th meeting of the Global South and the emerging economies in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He adds that the plan is to work towards transferring some of the technologies for production so that over time manufacturing can take place in Nigeria.
We signed a memorandum of understanding between the Brazilian Ministry of Health on the federal government of Brazil and the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare in the federal government of Nigeria. And that MOU commits us to work together along those dimensions, including exploring government-to-government arrangements to secure commodities like vaccines, which Brazil is able to produce and has been producing for decades, that are safe, that are efficacious, that are well regulated, with a view to transferring those technologies over time for the manufacturing to take place in Nigeria. Certain pharmaceuticals for HIV, TB, and other drugs that we use, there's a private company in Brazil that is already in discussions through its partner to establish a manufacturing plant in Nigeria. Now, the relationship between the two governments would enable those trade relations to accelerate. So the MOU provides us a structured mechanism for engaging and building the partnership between the two countries. Of course, it is not limited to health broadly, the kinds of areas that Brazil and Nigeria are working together. But my task here is to focus on what we can do more on health in line with the leadership of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because the leadership of the president has restored respect in the global scene for Nigeria.
Right, so let's get more news and reports from the nation's capital, where Gloria Mizoke is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Hello, Gloria.
Thank you, Ayo. We begin with diplomatic ties between Nigeria and Malawi, which received a boost as the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, has described the participation of the Malawi Parliamentary Service Commission in its capacity building program as a testament to its commitment to strengthening legislative governance. He made the statement while welcoming the delegation at the Institute's headquarters in Abuja. Professor Suleiman also called for the establishment of a resident Malawi embassy in Abuja. Our correspondent, Benny Ork, reports.
The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NIOD, is hosting a capacity-building program for the Parliamentary Service Commission in Malawi. The training is designed to strengthen legislative competence and governance structures in Malawian Parliament. Present at the opening session is the Director General and Management Staff of NIOD, the first Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Malawi, members and commissioners from the Parliament of Malawi, as well as government.
This training comes at a critical time when the PSC is working on various strategies aimed at positioning the Parliament of Malawi as a people-centered institution that is responsive, accountable, and efficient in fulfilling its legislative oversight and, of course, representative functions. Through this training, I'm sure the PSC will be able to realize professional development of staff, improved institutional performance, and untimely the realization of the Malawi Parliamentary Service Strategic Plan.
The training focuses on enhancing parliamentary processes, e-parliament solutions, code of conduct, and constituency engagement strategies.
This program, Your Excellency, is designed not only to build capacities of the Malawian Parliament, but also to provide a platform to reflect on our global shift in technology, geopolitics, economics, and environmental management influence legislative function and parliamentary administration.
Professor Suleiman also used the occasion to call on the government of Malawi to establish a permanent embassy in Nigeria to further strengthen diplomatic and parliamentary ties between both countries.
Although Malawi has optimized the advantage of its embassy in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to coordinate diplomatic ties with many countries, including Nigeria. Malawi does not have an embassy in Nigeria, and I hope so next your country will open an embassy in Abuja. While efforts are ongoing for Malawi to have an embassy in Nigeria, I call on the government of Malawi to accelerate efforts to have an embassy in Nigeria, just as Nigeria has a High Commission in Malawi.
The 5-day training continues with sessions on legislative practice, institutional ethics, and shared learning experiences from other Commonwealth parliaments. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
Now, some interesting news for students aiming to continue their higher education, as the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board, JAMB, has announced the cutoff mark for candidates seeking admission into Nigerian universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education for the year 2025. The JAMB registrar, Professor Ishaq Oluide, announced 150 as the cutoff mark for universities, 120 for polytechnics, and 100 for colleges of education at the 2025 policy meeting for admissions into tertiary institutions. Meanwhile, the Minister of Education, Mr. Tunji Alausa, has also set 16 years as the minimum entry age limit for candidates into tertiary schools.
The Registrar of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAMB, is hosting Vice-Chancellors, Provosts of Colleges of Education, and Heads of Polytechnics to the 2025 policy meeting in Abuja, and the Minister of Education is a special guest of honor. The business of the day includes a review of previous year's performances and challenges, the consideration of admission guidelines, and setting of the cutoff mark for the 2025 admission cycle.
As we begin the 2025 admission process, it is essential to recognize that JAMB is fully prepared to fulfill its statutory duties of overseeing the admission procedure to ensure that no qualified candidate is denied the opportunity of quality higher education.
However, before delving into the main business of the day, the Minister of Education announces the minimum age requirement for admission into tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
The age at entry into tertiary institutions has generated much debate, but our position is clear. The entry age for admission into tertiary institutions is now officially pegged at 16 years. This policy decision reflects a balance between cognitive maturity and academic preparedness. 16 is not negotiable. 16 years of age as admission, as the official age, is not negotiable. Institutions are hereby directed to ensure strict compliance.
Honourable Minister, sir, we have proposals for 130, 150, 140.
Next is the consideration of cutoff marks for tertiary institutions, and the JAMB registrar leads the session.
Those who want 150 and 160, stand up, combine. 150 and 160. 150 and 160. Majority. 150, thank you, 150. Now we are going to polytechnics. 150. Polytechnics.
I know the university 150.
University 150.
The Minister of Education gives further clarifications on the resolutions reached.
For universities, minimum admission, when there's a cutoff point will be 150.
Yes, approved.
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 Yes. For colleges of nursing, the cutoff point will be 140.
Approved.
Approved. For polytechnics, the cutoff point will be 100. Approved. For colleges of agric, the cutoff point will be 100. And colleges of education, the cutoff point will be 100.
As the meeting ends, tertiary institutions across the country can now fix their cutoff marks, considering the admission quota and vacancies in the faculties and departments, provided such benchmarks do not fall below the one set by this meeting.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10. Nigeria's economic activities expand for the 6th consecutive month as official PMI reading climbs higher to 51.4 in June. Now that's in business news. Let's join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. Now, it's a rewarding day and moment for civil servants in Zamfara State, particularly for retirees, as hope was rekindled during a special event held in Gusau by the state government. The highlight of the event was an official announcement on the commencement of the gratuity debt payments, an anticipated move that brought relief and renewed confidence among retired workers. In a symbolic gesture aimed at strengthening the morale of the state's workforce, Governor Dauda Lawal honored 7 outstanding civil servants in recognition of their commitment and service to Zamfara State.
After years of frustration and agony from retired, some have attained 60 years of the mandatory age or 35 years of working for the Zamfara State government, all ending with unpaid gratuities and allowances. Some of them have even passed on.
Any servant that retired, the expectation is that gratuity. I have seen my brothers that died, that even at the deathbed, they were talking about gratuity. It was so emotional.
To reverse this trend, the governor, Dauda Lawal, set up 2 committees to review, verify, and make appropriate recommendations to the state government. That exercise has given hope to those who have not been paid that entitlement between 2011 and 2023.
I, Hassan Mohammed, Chairman, Zamfara State Council of Nigerian Union of Pensioners, wish to sincerely appreciate the mandatories and the exactly action by His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawan, for liquidating the more than 12 years outstanding liabilities gratuities on State pensioners.
13.6 billion naira has so far been paid, and the beneficiaries expressed gratitude to the governor.
In fact, this is an exciting day, the happiest day and the happiest moment for all the retirees.
This payment ceremony was attended by the head of service, who appreciated the governor for prioritizing the welfare of civil servants.
On behalf of the entire serving and retired civil servants of the state, for your compassionate concern to the retirees, the statement of their outstanding gratuities has enormously brought happiness and joy to so many families, particularly who their breadwinners have passed away. I also wish to commend the members of the committee who are well done.
For the governor, this is just the beginning of better days ahead for the civil servants, as he promises that employees and retirees of the government will never suffer abandonment as long as he remains at the helm of affairs.
Our government will continue to support and pay all the entitlement to civil servants, public servants, and public office holders. This had never been done in the history of this state. The payment of backlog of gratuities has without doubt increased the confidence of public servants in the government as their employees.
The governor has embarked on reformative policies that has seen the rehabilitation of the state civil service structure, hospitals, road construction, human capital development, and empowerment of young people. All these he has done within a little over 2 years of being in office.
Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Ayo, for more on the news at 10.
Many thanks, Gloria. In Rivers State, some coastal communities in Kana local government area have passed a vote of confidence on the hydrocarbon pollution remediation project HYPREP over ongoing mangrove restoration works in Ogoni. They say HYPREP's intervention in areas like Bomo, Kedere and coastal Gokana is impacting aquatic life positively. However, they are urging the agency to extend the same restoration efforts to their own communities. Our correspondent, Deborah Agbalama, reports.
These
are Ogoni youths and community leaders from various coastal communities in Kana local government area of River State. They are here on what they call a self-organized surveillance tour to assess the mangrove restoration activities under the Ogoni cleanup program and to highlight what remains to be done. After visiting some locations, they expressed satisfaction with the work HyPrep has done in Bomu, Kedere, and parts of Gokana, where major mangrove restoration is ongoing.
The Coalition of Kana Coastal Communities commend the Hydrocarbon Pollution Remediation Project, HyPrep, for its efforts in restoring native mangroves in Ogoni, particularly the Bomu community. We express our deepest gratitude and pass a vote of confidence on the HyPrep coordinator of HyPrep coordinator, Professor Neni Barini Zabit, for his tireless effort in ensuring the success of the Ogoni cleanup exercise.
We are here because we are particularly concerned about the situation of Ogoni people, in particular Kana. And we are applauding the Honorable PC for the much attention he has given to the demand of the Ogoni people and in restoring the environment. More so, the Minister of Environment has done enough to have listening ear, listening to the PC each time he comes for complaint. And most importantly, the renewed hope agenda led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the much attention he has given to the Ogoni people.
But the leaders say the same level of attention is yet to reach their coastal line. Their concern is the invasion of Nippon palm, a fast-spreading plant species they believe is wiping out native mangroves and threatening fish breeding areas.
We are alarmed by the unintended consequences of removing invasive Nippon palm, which has led to the disappearance of fish and aquatic life, threatening the livelihood of our people in the coastal communities in Kana. Communities are calling on HyPrep to exhibit action on our coastline to clear Nippon palms and restore our ecosystem.
And what we are pleading for is the attentions of the HyPrep and the federal government should be drawn to Kana. And that is all what we want. Bono Ogoni. Bono Ogoni. Bono Ogoni.
Some of the affected coastal communities include Si, Gwara, Kwiri, Inyokweri, Bain, Bane, Okpoko, Kalioku, Tinama, amongst others, all traditionally dependent on fishing for survival.
This Nippon palm has taken over everywhere in almost all the coastal communities in Kana, in Kana local government, and all our aquatic life has been destroyed. Our fishermen can no longer have fishes again. The women can no longer get access to the periwinkles again, and other fishing seafood then.
With ongoing restoration works already seeing the planting of over 2 million mangrove seedlings in other parts of Ogoni, these communities in Kana remain hopeful that their plea will receive the attention it deserves to protect their coastal line, restore aquatic life, and safeguard their livelihoods. Deborah Abalama, Channels Television News.
What's happening in the world of business? Well, let's find out with Dominic Iwiwu. Dominic?
Thank you, Ayotunde. Welcome to Business News. The economic activities in the country expanded for the 6th consecutive month in June as the country's Composite Purchasing Managers Index PMI rose to 52.3 last month. According to the report released by the central bank, all three major sectors, agriculture, industry and services, recorded the highest expansion in economic activity during the review period, largely due to increased production and farming activity. However, the CBN's June PMI report suggests that while economic activity continues to grow, the widening gap between input and output prices, especially in key sectors like agriculture, could lead to price adjustments by firms if cost absorption becomes unsustainable. Global trade expanded by an estimated $300 billion in the first half of 2025, driven by rising services trade and marginal increases in goods services. This is according to the latest global trade update released by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. The UN agency estimates that global trade rose by 1.5% in the first quarter of 2025 and is projected to grow by approximately 2% in the second quarter. However, the United Nations sub-organization warns that the outlook for the remaining part of the year is increasingly uncertain due to mounting policy risks and escalating geopolitical tensions. Power distribution companies DISCO generated 199.85 billion naira revenue in April this year, and that's according to the Nigerian Electricity Regulation Commission. In its DISCO's commercial performance fact sheet for the month under review, the NERC announced the revenue evaluation says the figure represents a 5.81% increase from the 188.89 billion naira revenue collected in March. The power sector regulator says the April revenue reflects a collection efficiency of 77.59%, up from 71.07% in March, while the total energy received by DISCOs was 9.6% lower than the previous month at 2,622.46 gigawatts in April. And now it's a second day of gain for the domestic stock market as investors extended their bargain hunting for high-level equities on the NGX. Willie Bong tells us more.
Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Where did the smart money flow on the NGX today? We've got the highlights. The all-share index sustained bullish momentum for a second straight day, up about 0.33%, a similar margin that was recorded on Monday. Yesterday, we saw 0.31%. Today, 0.3%, not so far off. Now, the banking stocks, we can say, mostly drove the gains, and that's following the CBN lifting the cap on banks' additional Tier 1 capital until March 2026. We saw some price movement for Tier 1 banks, GTCO. Let's look at the figures. We saw GTCO today up 1.72%. That translates to about 1 naira 45 kobo. First Holdco gained about 1 naira 95 kobo. Stays up 6.96%, and we see UBA gaining 45 kobo, Access 5 kobo. Zenith Bank, the outlier there, losing about 25 kobo off its share price today. Obviously, overall banking index, we see the sectors reflected this, and we see it closing up 1.14%. That's a good one. But gains of Okomu, let's look at other sectors. Gains of Okomu, Dangote Sugar, NASCON boosted the consumer goods sector. And no price movement for Presco, though, even though we saw the company announce a 42 naira dividend. Maybe we'll begin to see investors position maybe from tomorrow ahead of payday. And positive movement in Japan Gold, look at that sector, oil and gas, was not enough to offset the loss in O&O. And the overall index was down today 0.22%. Let's hope the movement, this positive movement, is sustained tomorrow. And those are the highlights. Will Ibong signing out.
Now let's find out how the global markets ended Tuesday's trading session. And that's it on the news, on business news. Back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Dominic. 4 people are now known to have died in a fire that engulfed a major telecom company building in downtown Cairo, Egypt. More than 24 people were injured in the significant blaze, which erupted at the iconic 10-story Telecom Egypt building and persisted for several hours. It originated in one of the halls on the floor designated for telecom operators and spread to other levels due to its severity. There's Simon Puzi with other international news, or more international news rather, in Around the World in 5 from our London studio.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. An all-women group of Israeli legal and gender experts allege in a new report that Hamas used sexual violence as part of a deliberate genocidal strategy during the 7th of October 2023 attack on Israel. The Dina Project says the report is based on a review of evidence, including first-hand testimony from a survivor of an attempted rape and 15 former hostages held in Gaza, as well as accounts from witnesses to sexual assaults. It lays out what the group describes as a legal blueprint for prosecuting these crimes, even when direct attribution to individual perpetrators is impossible. Hamas has denied its forces committed sexual violence against women or mistreated female hostages.
This is day 641 since October 7th, that barbarous attack, that awful day that we experienced. And we still have 50 hostages in the tunnels in Gaza, and we need them all back. And the report that was handed to me today by a courageous group of women, most of them international legal experts, has demonstrated the systematic use of sexual violence as a tool of war on October 7th and since against the hostages held in Gaza.
Meanwhile, the US President Donald Trump has said the Gaza ceasefire talks are going along very well, despite no breakthrough in the latest round of indirect negotiations between Israel and Hamas in Qatar. Mr. Trump spoke to reporters as he hosted Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington, D.C. on Monday evening, with the Israeli Prime Minister surprising him by revealing his nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize.
The President has already realized great opportunity. He forged the Abraham Accords. He's forging peace as we speak in one country and one region after the other. So I want to present to you, Mr. President, the letter I sent to the Nobel Prize Committee. It's nominating you for the Peace Prize, which is well-deserved, and you should get it.
Thank you very much. This I didn't know. And we've had great cooperation from surrounding Israel, surrounding countries, great cooperation from every single one of them. So something good will happen.
The death toll from the flash floods that struck central Texas has now climbed to more than 100 people, and an unknown number of others are missing. Search and rescue teams are wading through mud-piled riverbanks as more rain and thunderstorms threaten the region, but hope was fading of finding any more survivors 4 days after the catastrophe started. Camp Mystic, a Christian all-girls summer camp, confirmed at least 27 girls and staff were among the dead. 10 girls and a camp counselor are still missing.
There was a broader region in Texas, Hill Country region, that experienced a heavy rain event over the past weekend. But the real focus has been on the Guadalupe River region, where just an incredible overnight deluge, torrential thunderstorms dropped inches of rain per hour for several hours on a sustained basis. Really, the ingredients in place were an extremely moist air mass, one of the moistest air masses that we've seen in Texas at this time of year historically, combining with some residual spin in the atmosphere from a former tropical storm Barry, plus an unstable atmosphere. And unfortunately, that's a combination that led to torrential thunderstorms that just moved over and over the same regions repeatedly.
The first malaria treatment suitable for babies and very young children has been approved for use. It's expected to be rolled out in African countries within weeks. Until now, there have been no approved malaria drugs specifically for babies. Instead, they have been treated with versions formulated for older children, which presents a risk of overdose. And Indonesia's Mount Lawatobi Laki-Laki has begun erupting again, at one point shooting an ash cloud 18 kilometers into the sky, as residents fled their homes once more. There have been no reports of casualties since Monday morning, when the volcano on the island of Flores began spewing ash and lava. Authorities have placed it on the highest alert level since an earlier round of eruptions 3 weeks ago. At least 24 flights to and from the neighbouring resort island of Bali were cancelled, though some have resumed on Tuesday. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Super Falcons defender Ashley Plumpton says the team is under no pressure as they hope to reclaim the Women's African Cup of Nations title in Morocco. Plumpton told Channels Television in Casablanca, but the 3-0 win against Tunisia in their opening game is a big boost in actualizing their Mission X goal. And new signing João Pedro scored twice on his first start as Chelsea beat Fluminense 2-0 to reach the final of the Club World Cup. Playing against the club where he began his career, the Brazilian forward scored the opening on 18th minute and netted another just before the hour in the last fourth tie. Chelsea will play either Real Madrid or PSG in Sunday's final. Carlos Alcaraz swept into the Wimbledon semi-finals for our third successive year as the defending champion demolished Britain's Cameron Norrie in our Centre Court Masterclass earlier today. Alcaraz needed just 99 minutes to thrash Norrie 6-2, 6-3, 6-3 in his most commanding performance in this year's tournament. The Spanish second seed dropped 4 sets in a series of scrappy displays during the run-up to the last 8. And Wimbledon's
Thank you, Chris. And the main news again. 3 members of the African Democratic Congress ADC today filed a suit challenging the interim leadership of the party, led by former President of the Senate, David Mark, before a federal high court, Abuja. Also today, tension gripped 2 neighboring communities in Adamawa state as police confirmed 2 deaths after a communal clash in Lamorde local government area of the state. And an all-women group of Israeli legal and gender experts have accused Hamas of using sexual violence as part of a deliberate genocidal strategy during the October 7, 2023 attack on Israel. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. And Ayotunde Balogun. You have a good night.